So first of all, it's important to understand that, and you know this as well as I do, nobody comes from nowhere.
No, for sure. So give me more.
It takes work, right? So I really became known after Lex Fridman interviewed me in August of 2022. Mm-hmm. But I had been podcasting and speaking on stages for 2-3 years before that. I started in 2019. But you speak on a 200 person YouTube channel. You speak on a 150 person YouTube channel. You speak on these smaller channels or these smaller podcasts that don't even have a YouTube presence, because back in 2021, right, it wasn't really common to have a YouTube podcast. Most people still had audio only podcasts. So, I was working to try to get my message out there, and I had, tens of customers, and I was doing, some coaching and some really private consulting in my hometown where people knew me and trusted me and whatever else. But in 2022, I got a message from Lex to come do his podcast, and he found me. I don't know how. I think he found me from another podcast I had done with like a medium-sized Florida podcaster named Concrete, Danny Jones.
Yeah, Danny Jones, yeah.
Yeah. So something about what I was talking about was interesting to Lex. And then when I went on Lex's show, it's funny because there were a number of things that happened right before I went on Lex's show. First, I lost a tooth.
Oh my God, yes.
So I had this gap in my face, and I was like, it was so awkward because I was like, I can't believe I look like a hillbilly and I'm going on this podcast that has, 1.7 million subscribers or whatever else, but I'm not going to let it get to me. I'm going to make it happen anyways. And then I get on Lex's show, and I got smart on Lex a little bit before I went there, but I didn't want to be so smart that I, fanboyed out or whatever else. And then I found out that we disagreed on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm just going to stand my ground and disagree, even though I don't know if this is good or bad. And it wasn't until afterwards that I realized that people liked the fact that I disagreed with Lex, that I was a different voice. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of learned from that. Now, truly what happened after Lex happened, a series of people who follow Lex very closely, Chris Williamson and some others, immediately invited me onto their show because they were like, hey, if you were on Lex, we want you on our show because we're going to feed off of his algorithm. Because when his algorithm hits, it's going to send you to, it's going to, be good for us. So I was just a dancing monkey, right? With the fucking symbols.
Yeah.
Nobody cared about me. Nobody cared about my opinion. They were just
like numbers, baby.
Yes. They were like, we need your name, your SEO, because once Lex puts money behind you, we're going to capitalize too. And you know what? That's fine. I'm used to being a tool. I was the fucking CIA dildo for who knows how long. Just do whatever you want to do with me. That's what I'm here for. Right. So let's go do what we got to do.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize then that I realize now is that when you create content, especially content with people who have the wherewithal to keep making more content, the 20% of creators who keep creating rather than the 80% that give up, that content lives forever. So now, like, it just keeps growing and snowballing and growing and snowballing. And people want to say that I'm a psyop, that CIA planted me. That's fine. Again, the rule of incompetence shows that that's very unlikely. But if you want to believe it, believe it.
But also, like, if you're in the game at all, you understand you understand one thing. Maybe you don't, because your penis might take over for that. But if one person greenlights you, it's no different than the military community there, sweetheart. If one person greenlights you, the second will and the third will, unless some people don't have you on because they only want penises on. That is also a real reality. I've actually considered transitioning just to see if I can get on a couple new shows. But it's interesting because that's how I've seen it happen for you. And like you said, I'm so glad how you address that, because there is that conversation of, where did you come from? I've heard that before. To me, I've heard it. I've seen it with you. It's, where did you come from? It's like, well, no, it's the 10,000 hours. It's the time that you didn't see where I was doing this, this, and this, and this, and strategically working my way in. But once you're in, if you can get in, it made total sense. I knew as soon as I saw you on Lex, that wasn't going to be the only episode I saw. But what I do love so much about listening to some of the things that you've said on different platforms is you can gauge the person enough to gauge where you can go, to the depths in which you can go, and how far you can kind of go leeway wise, meaning conspiratorial versus applicable real life skill tool. Lex was very different than Steven was very different than Chris is very different, right?
So fresh. sun.